All right, we're back, and so are you. We appreciate you for that. We're back here on Snap Tackle Pod, week five
Five.
week five of the season already with Deanna Clisso, Preps KC. I'm Mick Schaefer of KSHB 41, currently in my basement, though. Record this early. It's normal time for all of you. It's early for a guy who goes home at like 11:30 at night and goes to bed at like 1. So you're welcome, Dion, and everybody else for me getting up to match your time.
I worked until 12:30 last night, so I don't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, you can rely on little sleep.
Well, here's the other thing too. When I got done working at 12:30, I went upstairs and went to bed. That's the difference.
Yeah.
There was no drive home and then an hour to unwind.
Yeah.
the typing of the district standings on the Missouri side was my unwinding.
That was it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
You have to type those out yourself?
Yeah, I type them in, get them off Misha, and once they get them set up and ready to go. And the original, back when they went to the district thing like 10 years ago, we talked to our developer about having it so when the scores were then, they would automatically figure, but you have to have scores from everybody that everybody's played. It's a 6 degrees of separation thing. So the doesn't matter what your math comes out to be, which the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for a long time would do their own math and tell Misha they were wrong, but it doesn't really matter if your math is different than Misha's math or if your math is correct based on their formula.
Right, yeah.
Because it's Misha's, and Misha says it's that. That's what it is. That's what it is. So I just go to the source and type those in, which is actually, people I'd like typing in schedules. I could have someone do that, but I have a sense of what the schedules are every year because I type them in. So it's grind work. And I don't think if you wanted to do this job, at least my side of this job, if you didn't somewhat enjoy or not hate some of the grind, you definitely don't want to do it. But it does kind of throw some numbers in your brain, and you kind of have a sense of where teams are in terms of district standings and where they're going to kind of shake out.
I'm proud of you. I write stuff down. So I have a planner where I write things down every single day. I plan out things in different colored ink. So I look and say, a lot of cheap stuff today. Or we got some Royal stuff, KU, K-State, whatever. I got the blue, the purple, the black from Mizzou. Very color coded. Very
you actually get to write some stuff down.
OCD and old school at the same time.
You get to write some stuff down from Mizzou. We went from should we fire the coach to what big bowl game we're going to go to?
Lose to Memphis, and we'll be back to should we.
Well, that's true. They're due for a flat performance with Memphis saddled in on a trip to St. Louis between LSU. Now, if they win that game against Memphis, I would assume they would have been ranked. Not sure why one team falls all the way out behind, falls 13 spots and we can't sniff the top 25, but it is what it is. But you'd think that both teams would be ranked, and who knows? LSU, a ranked LSU undefeated, a ranked Missouri undefeated. Game day, Saturday night, something like that.
I heard all my Mizzou coworkers, by the way, and there's a lot of them in journalism yesterday talk about game day for LSU. Pump the brakes. 1 week at a time. K-State, good win.
Yes, very good win. Very good win. And that's a good K-State team. And I'd like to thank them for letting us hang around, because that's what it did. It just let Missouri build confidence. And that's a team at K-State that I think, Texas looks pretty good, but they've still got an outside chance. Not an outside chance. They have a chance to win the Big 12, which is saying a lot.
Texas is going to be 8-4. Listen, I've seen this. I can tell you what's going to happen in college football every year, and Texas is going to be 8-4. All right, let's get to it. Let's see the future here for the high school football scene here in Kansas City. But first, I guess we'll look into the past. Last week, week 4, was week 3 for Kansas. But in Missouri, I asked you about what do you want to talk about? The first thing you said was that Pius Maryville game, 46-42 shootout that Maryville wins.
Yes. Last week we were able to really kind of flood the zone, so to speak, and cover a lot of games. And it was fantastic. And we worked some things around. And Joe Coroni, who writes for us, lives in North Kansas City. And I asked him, would you like to drive to Maryville? And he said, sure. Because I felt like that was a game that in the past that we had partnered with other news outlets, we would get that game through them, but some of those news outlets aren't covering quite like they used to. So we're kind of on an island out here on our own, which is fine. We're picking up the slack. And so he went out there and it was 46-42, and Maryville intercepted the ball on 4th down in the end zone with like 10 seconds left in the game. And so that's how close that game was. And it was back and forth all night long. In fact, Joe texted me on Saturday morning, by the way, as he was sending his stuff in. It was after midnight, about 2:00 by the time he got back from Maryville and got his stuff in. He said that he was standing next to the side judge there on the sidelines at some point, I think early in the third quarter, and the side judge looked over and said, a really good team is going to lose tonight.
Yeah.
The way those two teams are playing. And, the sad fact is they're in the same district. So this could be a district final down the line. So only one of them's probably going to get out into the quarterfinals. But no, a good win. A Maryville team that's a little different than they have been in the past. They've got a quarterback who can throw the ball. And Pius is a really good team. Pius's defense has been outstanding all season. Maryville had played pretty well defensively, and you see what their offenses could do when offenses get going. It's tough to stop these days, and an outstanding effort by both teams, and Maryville got the win.
Now, congrats on Pius. That looks like another great season in the works for Anthony Simone and company over there. Let's stay in Missouri. We've seen Bentonville come up and beat up on some really good Kansas and Missouri teams at KCO the last few years. This time, Rockhurst goes down to Bentonville and gets a win. How big of a win was that?
I think it's a huge win coming off of the loss to Liberty North. The Liberty North loss could have been something that rolled into 2-3. I mean, they go down to Bentonville, maybe they lose. They got Miege this week. They've got Aquinas the week after that. I mean, they were in the middle of, starting off a stretch of some really tough games. Rockhurst schedule's tough. There's no doubt about that. But to go down there and they were leading most of the game, and then Bentonville came back and tied it, and they got a field goal at the end to win it. That is a big test for that team. With the guys have been starting, a lot of them since they were sophomores, that showed resiliency, that show that they are veteran guys. They bounced back from that loss on the road to the number 3 team in Class 7A in Arkansas, and a perennial power. Yeah. So that's the biggest class in Arkansas, and they're the number 3 team going in. So huge win for Kelly Donahoe, his staff, and that team, and really that I looked at their run, and it's like you lose to Liberty North, and then one could be 3 or 4 real quick. And now they're rolling into a game with Bishop Miege, who really hasn't been tested at all. And now they've got to feel like, hey, we've been through a tough loss and then won a tough game. Rock's got to feel pretty good about going into this week.
Last week, our game of the week for Friday night for us on KSHB 41 was Odessa and Oak Grove. Odessa takes care of Oak Grove, so score 1 for Lafayette County, I guess, huh?
Yes. And what they did is what you've got to do against an Oak Grove team that likes to get the ball and run option and kill the clock. They got up on them and made Oak Grove chase, and they never were able to kind of get back into it. 24-10 was the final there. And it shows that Odessa has played a lot of games of, even though their numbers are not what Oak Grove's are, and maybe their experience level is not what they are, that a lot of these kids that have been on Odessa, since they were freshmen, have played a lot of extra games in the postseason, and that shows up sometimes. And I'm not saying Odessa, Oak Grove isn't going to be a good team down the line. There's a good chance these two teams will play each other again. But Odessa gets round 1 here in the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more on the Missouri side I wanted to hit on was Lee Summit. Hey, Lee Summit hung tough with Lee Summit North, but it's like it's been the last couple of weeks with Lee Summit North. They just put away teams, not in flashy fashion or whatever. They just win games.
I felt that was maybe the best performance outside of the Liberty North win that Lee Summit North has put in. Because Lee Summit kind of the first half was kind of hanging with them, and then they just put them away in the second half. They didn't do that to Staley the week before, and now they've done it. And so I think that's a good win for them. I mean, they really, they've got Blue Valley Northwest this week, which is going to be a good test for them. But I think that shows that might be their most complete victory, including the one over Liberty North. I mean, it's tough to say that, but I mean, they really spaced themselves out and put a team away like they haven't done all season. Yeah.
All right, over on the Kansas side, I guess I'm the one that's supposed to ask you the questions. But so the question is, what happened with Mill Valley? How was that so close with Shadow Mission Northwest? But I mean, I was there.
I was texting with a guy who was there who said that offensively, Mill Valley was the passing game wasn't really working very well, and so Shadow Mission Northwest just put 8 in the box and said, "Do something." And
yeah. And so, look, Shadow Mission Northwest is a good team. They got some really big and good guys up front. A lot of times the big guys aren't, with the offensive defensive linemen, often the big guys aren't, technically sound. A lot of times the little guys are, but they're little. They get some big guys that can play football. And so take nothing away from them. They had a great defensive game plan. Bo Black can coach some football. But 14-7, the Northwest scored on a pick 6, and they got another interception 2 plays later. But the Mill Valley defense held up, and it might have expose some things from Mill Valley, but definitely might have them working on some things moving forward to Gardner this week.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Joel when he comes on the show this week the same thing he kind of had last year. He said, sometimes you need a loss of that close win so the kids will kind of snap out of it and listen to what you're trying to tell them. And he doesn't necessarily, he doesn't want to lose any games, but he doesn't necessarily think that losses can be a bad thing, and especially that game, which was much closer than I think a lot of people thought. But like you said, Shawnee Mission Northwest is a team loaded with juniors. A lot of those sophomores played last year, and I think Maliko Adis masked a lot of the youth they had last year because they could just give him the ball and get him some space, and he made big plays. But I think that's a Shawnee Mission Northwest team that, as the season goes on, is going to get better and better. And I think that was a good effort for them. They had Mill Valley and Olathe North back-to-back weeks. That's not an easy task, and they played better the second week than they did the first. They played pretty solid against Olathe North the week before.
No, both games were. I mean, I watched the Olathe North game as well. Both were back and forth. I mean, if you were paying attention to the score for both games, you're like, okay, this I don't know who's winning. This is a close game, and they were both close games. And so, Mill Valley survives, but Shawnee Mission Northwest, that's a team that can. I mean, well, they're 1-2 now, but I think that's a team that can get to 5 wins in the regular season at least, and then win a couple, make a run in the postseason as well. And what could be kind of an open east side of the 6A bracket. We'll get to that Mill Valley Gardner game coming up. But one more. Listen, I was at Blue Valley West on Thursday and saw Blue Valley Southwest handle a good Blue Valley West team. Southwest as a defense, they got a great quarterback. They got a lot of nice pieces there. Are you a believer in Southwest this year?
Well, and we'll talk more about this game later, but they've got a good game this week with Spring Hill. That's a physical team and likes to run the ball, so it's a little different. It's a similar test because I think they want to do that at Blue Valley West, but that's impressive to me to bounce back off the Miege loss. It kind of validates, the win over Blue Valley in week 1. And, I like Blue Valley West. It's a team that was back and forth with Aquinas in week 1. And that's
Nate Nagy can play, man. Matt Nagy's son can play.
Sage Huffman, their tailback is the all-time leading rusher at Blue Valley West. And so now they've got a lot of nice pieces at Blue Valley West. So the way that Southwest won is the most impressive thing. Not that they won because I think that that was a toss-up game, but the way they won. And they're definitely showing some things. I mean, this is easily the best team under Anthony Ork. Like I said, I was reminded last week that in 2012, they had a pretty good team. They were in 4A in the old district system. And I think they won a couple games in the postseason and won a district. So, that was a good under Bill Lowe. That original team that was sophomores when they started by the time they were seniors was a really good group. But this may be the best or second best team in Blue Valley Southwest history.
All right, let's get to it. The Big Three, the Remax Big Three on Kansas and Missouri. They'll be kind of like the states will be crisscrossed. So some interstate action this week. So not all Missouri teams on the Missouri side, not all Kansas teams on the Kansas side. Case in point, we begin with Lee Summit North at Blue Valley Northwest. It's a big time matchup. One we were looking forward to at the beginning of the year. Northwest has the loss, but you still expect a close one here, Dion?
Yeah, it was a close game last year. Now Northwest had Grant Stubblefield, who was made up for a lot last year because he was one of the better athletes on the field. But you're talking about some pretty big recruits in the trenches for both these teams. 2 guys on the offensive line at Blue Valley Northwest are Power 5 recruits. And of course, Williams Nwarney. I struggle with his name and I apologize.
Williams
Winery. He's one of the best players in the country, depending on which recruiting service you look at. Has committed to the University of Missouri, I hear. We'll see. Hopefully that locked that down a little bit more last weekend. But no, it's a good game. A lot of talent on both sides, and like I said, this was a close game last year. So I think that this will be a good test for both teams. And the beauty of these games like this, that you lose it, you put it on a shelf, you learn from it, you go on. You don't have to see that team again. You don't have to try and scheme that team again. You just want to go out there and have a good effort. Try and stay healthy because these are 2 pretty big physical teams. You don't want to get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And D1 guys from Blue Valley Northwest, 2 on the offensive line, and they had the tight end going to Iowa as well. And so
Hoffman, is that the Hoffman kid?
Yeah, Hoffman. And so talent all over the field. At Blue Valley Northwest, that game is at Blue Valley Northwest.
Yes.
Stevie Jack
BB Deck actually at their building.
Yeah. Another game you mentioned already, Spring Hill takes on Blue Valley Southwest, contrasting styles here this week.
Colton McKenna, the outstanding tailback for Spring Hill, 3 touchdowns last week, and you could see on the highlights he was just tough to bring down. And I emailed with Coach Drew Steffen from Eudora, and he said, "Man, he's a difference maker. He said he is tough and physical, and you don't wrap him up, you're not going to get him down." And that's going to be the question: is Spring Hill going to be able to come out and be physical and move the ball down the field and keep the clock in their favor, score when they're inside, touchdowns, not field goals type thing. And then defensively, can they keep Dylan Dunn from just going bang, 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 touchdown?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that with Blue Valley Southwest. And they run the ball decently well, too. I think they do a lot of things well offensively. I don't want to just make it sound like they're air raid out there, but it's a great matchup of styles. They're both in 5A. So, you want to get those head-to-heads. I know head-to-head doesn't really matter in Kansas that much, but you want to be able to make sure you're above them in the standings. And right now, Spring Hill is above Blue Valley Southwest. They've got the 3-0 record where Southwest has the
losses. They're losses. They're not weighted
Yeah.
or anything over in Kansas. So, yeah.
You want to, if you got a chance to hand that other guy a loss, you want to hand that other guy a loss and stay out in front of them. So, no, both two really well-coached teams. And I think this is, styles make fights, and this will be an interesting one to see because, if you're Spring Hill, you may spend 6 minutes going down the field, but if they go down in a minute and a half, then your defense is right back out there. So, so you got to get out there. So it's going to be a fun one. I like that one, and I like to mix up the big threes, but we've kind of had we've had a lot of back games with the same teams. I think some of the schedules were front loaded. But no, that's one I definitely had especially the way Spring Hill played last week. That definitely is a big 3 game.
Yeah, close game with Eudora. A good
Eudora team.
What's that?
I said a good Eudora team. I mean, that's not a
close game.
Yeah, close game, and I think that's a Eudora team that when you get to 4A, they're going to be a tough team to take out.
Yeah. What a monster week this is for high school football in Kansas and Missouri. You have the crossover games, then you have the game of the year so far in Kansas. Number 1 in 5A, Mill Valley, the 4-time defending state champs. Number 1 in 6A, Gardner on the road to Mill Valley. Of course, Gardner coming off the overtime loss last year in the state championship game to Manhattan. 2 power teams going out the Spectrum game of the week.
And defenses that have really not allowed much at all. And you talk about, the only score in the Mill Valley game last week was a pick 6 by the Shawnee Mission Northwest defense. So technically that defense was a shutout.
For both these teams is not allowed a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I believe the starting defense total, Gardner might have allowed 1, but starting defense for Mill Valley is allowed 6 points. 2.
Yeah. And there's back-to-back shutouts for Gardner, including the one on the Thursday night when the Chiefs played. And I've made this joke several times. Gardner played like they wanted to get home not too long after the 7:20 kickoff because they were up 50-something to nothing over a Shawnee Mission East team that took Lawrence all the way to the end in overtime last week. So I think that definitely, Gardner's rolling. I don't know whose level of competition. I'd say the Mill Valley level is a little better because Shawnee Mission Northwest.
How about this stat? Combined, their opponents this year are 2-16.
Yeah.
So, but both of them, although Shawnee Mission Northwest is by far the best team of the 3 teams that Mill Valley's played and Gardner's played of those 6 teams. But yeah, they've kind of been waiting for this game, and it's going to be a big one. It's homecoming at Mill Valley. How about that cupcake they scheduled for homecoming?
Well, if Joel is like one coach that used to coach with him, is he a let's get it over as early as possible type guy? I mean, is that when his input?
I don't know how. I think a lot of times administration, there's only a few week window there. A lot of times host a homecoming because you have all these other events and you have conferences and all that stuff. So this might have been the only date they could.
Let's just say a coach who used to coach in my town on the south side told me that if it was up to him, he would have senior night and homecoming, the first home game, and be done with it all.
Senior night is the first home game at Mill Valley.
Yeah.
That's
he said senior.
We laugh like, what a ride these seniors have been on. Wait, who is that? Because we don't even know numbers at that point.
Yeah. He said also, because, he also said that, there's always some seniors who quit. At least they were there for the first game.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
So if you wait till the end of the year, maybe, Jimmy may not have been there. Jimmy maybe hung it up, but at least he gets to walk out there with his parents. So now homecoming, that should be a lot going on. Some say it's a distraction, some say it's not. I don't know. I'll be curious to see, when my kid goes through that, of what all the stuff that goes on. And
yeah,
if
it's a
distraction.
fun week. Everybody obviously has it at every school. You do your parade, you do your different themes each day and all that. Of course, the dance you're looking forward to on Saturday night. So I'm sure in some cases it gives you more juice, more energy, and other times maybe it takes away from the time that you would otherwise spend, studying an opponent. It's an anomaly here. These two teams have played the last 4 years in the Sunflower League. They've got each other on both rotations, and so the last 2 years, Mill Valley has won at Gardner 35-14, same score both times. The year before that, the COVID year 2020, Mill Valley was at home without their quarterback, and Gardner got a big win at home. I think it's 28-26 over a really good state championship Mill Valley team.
Well, and that was Jesse Owens' first year there, so that was kind of the look of, oh, hey, what they've got going on. So I think Gardner has looked as good as anybody. This will be their biggest test. Mill Valley, outside of last week, has looked as good as, as good as anybody as well. So
I want to say that was Cornelson's last year.
It was Cornelson's last year. As soon as I said that, I thought to myself,
third year.
Yeah, so that was one of those things where I think that these teams have definitely know each other, and Cornelson's system is very similar to, there wasn't much difference in terms of what they did offensively, so that was pretty easy for them. But no, it's going to be it's going to be interesting.
Gardner's a flexbone team that passes the ball a lot, right? It's Dustin Delaney. He's not afraid to throw the ball out of and they have athletes there, and they have size, and it's really
hit you over the top of the tight end.
Yeah. Right?
That was Shawnee Mission East. They rode that to a state championship.
Listen, this could be a low scoring game. Both of these teams aren't used to that, but I mean, the two really, really good defenses and great athletes all over the field. Jaden Woods for Mill Valley just wrecked the game last week. I mean, 8 tackles from the defensive end position and sack and TFLs, and it was fun to watch. All right, let's move on to the Missouri side of things and our RE/MAX Big 3 games of the week. Dion, you've got Bishop Miege at Rockers against Kansas being Missouri matchup, but it's in Missouri barely by several feet over there inside the state line at Rockers. And these are two teams that have lived up to the hype. I know the Rock has that one loss, but it's to a great team, and Miege is rolling as well.
Well, and this is about year 5 or 6 they've played since they kind of up the rivalry. And it now has a name. It's called the Catholic Clash.
I'll deal with it.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not bad.
What's Holy War? Is that Miege?
Holy War is Aquinas. Yeah. I don't know what St. James is. I don't know where they flow in and play all these. So, but this is the Catholic Clash, they're calling it. So we'll see. But no, we talked about it earlier. Rock, great win last week. Got to have a lot of confidence. Miege, whatever you need, they seem to get. I mean,
they can score, man.
Running game. Garcia, the tailback, is really good. The new quarterback is playing really well with the new receivers. Defensively, which is always their most underrated side of the ball because they can score at will. Defensively, they're playing really well and have shut some teams down. So I think it's going to be interesting. You wonder if it's going to be, Rocker's ability with their size to kind of lean on them and get that, and be able to stop the big plays and slow down the rushing attack that they have, because they've got a lot of big plays off of that. So last year it was close, and then Miege kind of blew it open at the end. That was a fun one to watch, but I don't know. I don't know who's going to get this one, but they're both playing as well as they could play heading into this game.
Also, Kansas v. Missouri crossover. Blue Valley West goes to Staley. Why is this one on your Big 3?
Well, it's Rampy against Korkenmeyer. He coached them in high school, so it's always a good. Last year, this was a great game.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
34-33. Both teams were kind of in a similar spot last year, kind of coming off losses, kind of looking at felt like they were pretty solid teams, but had played good teams and suffered a couple losses, going into it. Staley hung close with Lee Summit North, got a loss. They beat Lee Summit. Didn't play very well in week 1 against Blue Springs. I think that's kind of a week 1 loss that you can look back and go, didn't get that one done. And then played a pretty good Lee Summit West team last week that their defense shut them down and they lost 28-7. So both these teams are hungry for a win. The coaches know each other pretty well. And even though it's been a long time since Josh played for him, I think he'd like to return the favor that Coach Rampy did at Blue Valley West last year and go win on his field.
Like a 1-point game, right?
Yeah, it's a 1-point game. So I expect the same thing. I mean, I think both teams are pretty talented and, just haven't had the wins this year.
And last year on the Missouri side, 2 Missouri teams, Pleasant Hill at Odessa. This one kind of said, under the radar here on this huge week of high school football in and around Kansas City. But I like this Roosters and Bulldogs.
Both undefeated. This is probably for the MRVC West crown. I mean, I think Harrisonville's playing better, but they've already got the loss to Pleasant Hill, so they're kind of.
Pleasant Hill played Oak Grove yet? They haven't, have they?
They haven't. I think they play them next week. I think they do them back-to-back weeks. Yeah. So I mean, these 2 teams have kind of beaten the teams that are right there next to them. So the win here kind of vaults you to the top. So no, it's definitely a big one. Pleasant Hill's up in Class 4, so there's not like they're in the same district like they had been the last few years. So this is definitely a game that you can get the win, for conference, because conference still means something to a lot of people. So, this is something you can kind of sell to your kids. Like, you want to get the conference.
Patch the letter jacket, baby.
The patch. Some places hang, years on a banner, for conference champions. So now this is definitely Pleasant Hill's defense have been playing really well. We always know Odessa's defense has been is always good. So, and they're coming off a really solid defensive effort last week, but against Oak Grove. So no, it's a good one. Like I told my photographer who was at Oak Grove last week, I said, if you liked Oak Grove, you're going to love Odessa. So he's going back down there this week, which, yeah, he's an old Examiner guy. So him and I both have done some time on both those sidelines in Oak Grove and Odessa. But that one should be a pretty good one for that MRVC West title, which is one of those conferences that they all really care about, which is good.
Absolutely. And one that doesn't, this should be like the 4th Big 3 game. This should be 3B here coming up this week. Oak Park going to Platte County. You got undefeated Oak Park still against 3-1 Platte County, 2 of probably the top 10 teams in the entire metro area. What do you make of this one?
Well, Platte County last week got gashed by Grain Valley and Ty Williams. He goes for 339 yards rushing.
Talk about Ty in a second here.
Yeah. And so I think their defense, which is the strength of that team, feels like they need to bounce back. I don't know if Oak Park's the team that you look to bounce back against. You've got to solve some things really quickly. And offensively, they were they're sophomores, so there's going to be ups and downs. So I think it's Platte County is going to look to bounce back, but Oak Park, man, they've just been rolling along. They got the win over Grain Valley 2 weeks ago, late when they picked off a pass and ran it back to the 20 and then punched it in the final seconds of that game. So this is a big one. I mean, it's Class 6 Oak Park against Class 5 Platte County, but if you're Platte County, you've given up the head-to-head to Grain Valley. So you definitely want to get in there and get some bonus points if you can, if you could knock off a Class 6 Oak Park.
All right. Hey, let's look ahead. Who are some names that we could throw in the Simone hat at this point in the season? And is Ty Williams at the top of that list?
I think so. I mean, he's
the running back.
Running back Grain Valley had 339 yards rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns, another receiving touchdown. I think he's got 15 total now in 4 games between receiving and rushing. He's on a pace for pretty much 2,000 yards. He's averaging 215 yards a game.
He's a tank, by the way. He looks.
Oh yeah, he's a bowling ball. He's a tank. He's tough to get down. And I think talking to some of the people around the Platte County program, nobody within the Platte County program, people who covered the Platte County program, felt like that there was a lot of arm tackling going on. But as Cole Young and I were talking yesterday, he said tackling Ty Williams is definitely it's a business decision. And and I don't know how many of those Platte County kids decided that that's the hill they wanted to die on Friday night. And but no, I think he's definitely they got Blue Spring South this week. An 0-4 Blue Spring South that is finding itself on the other side of what they were last year. They won a lot of toss-up games, and this year they're kind of on the other side of it. So no, it's they've got to keep it rolling. If you're Grain Valley, you don't want to step back. You've already got the 1 loss, and Ty Williams is a big part of what they do. Not to be outdone, TJ Porter got 6 TDs for Olathe North last week. he doesn't have the yardage that Ty does, but he is a touchdown machine for that team. But the thing about TJ is that there was a great quote that he had, and then he talked to Coach McCartney about the longest run of the game was an 85-yarder that TJ is the one that blocked and sprung the other tailback for.
Really? Yeah.
So I mean, he's kind of doing a little bit of everything for them. Tillman, the quarterback at Liberty North, Elijah Leonard, the quarterback at Lee Summit North. Those are some guys.
Smith, receiver at Neil Smith's son.
For the Taylor. There's a lot of good players for the Taylor. I mean, Keelan Smith, Isaiah Mosey. That's going to be a deep list. So no, there's some. Panky, the tailback at Oak Park, is going to, as they continue to win, he's going to put up good numbers. They haven't had some. There's a lot of these guys may not have quite have the numbers that Ty Williams from Green Valley has right now, but they've needed him to score as much as they have because their defense is kind of banged up, and they need that offense to score points, and Ty's had to do it. So that's definitely why he's kind of jumped. Now he's averaging 10 yards a carry. It's not like he's 5 yards a carry and you're giving it to him 40 times a game. I mean, he's putting up some big numbers there, but no, I think those are some guys right there that kind of go, and I think it'll be interesting to see that some people will shake out as the season goes on, but those are some names right there. We're going to have a Simone watch up, our first one, just with some names of some guys here later this week, but we're getting there. I talked to Charlie Simone yesterday where the meetings are starting. So it's trying to get on it a little earlier this year, but no, it's definitely going to be a fun way to see. I mean, Green Valley's never had anybody, they haven't been up in the big classes that long. So they've never had anyone even, come close to be considered for that award. And so, no, it's definitely interesting to see them, but some others, the Liberty Norths and the Lee Summit Norths have been, had some people up there, and of course, those guys there, but that'll be interesting. One last shout out. This is my Raytown South hat. The Raytown South, which I think won 3 games in the last 4 years, maybe. They were 0-10 a couple times, I think.
Raytown last week
beat their rival Raytown 7-0.
I'm here for defensive battles. Let's go.
Yes, and that's the side of the ball that had like 10 starters back. Coach William Harris has done a really good job with that program, and that, like I said, they're 3-1. And their only losses to Grandview. Now they beat Raytown, they beat Truman. So that's some teams they should be. They're better than, but it's tough to get a pro when you go over. It's tough to turn that corner. And it's they won a game last year, but now they're at 3-1, and them along with Van Horn, who's 4-0 and looking like they're a couple weeks away from maybe. I mean, that's a team that could be 9-0 very easily. They've got some tough games with St. Michael's. Got Lincoln Prep this week. I think they should beat Lincoln Prep. St. Michael's is pretty solid. Summit Christian is always tough, but that's a Van Horn team that could be 9-0 and maybe earn. Right now they're seeded number 1 in their district that includes Pleasant Hill and Jeff City. I think that Pleasant Hill's probably the best team in there. I think Jeff City's not any good. Plus, I don't like them. So it's just. Jeff City people are like Nebraska people. It's been done forever.
Fans. Maybe they turned a corner, Dion. Maybe you should give them a chance.
Well, it's a different regime there now at Jeff City High School, and I think Capital City's pretty good. That's the new high school. I just know that in the last 10 years when they've come up here and played, they haven't, for all the bluster that Jeff City has had in the last 40 years, they really haven't been good for 20. And they've come up here and been just bad actors, destroying locker rooms, in games where they were getting beat bad in playoff games, trying to get personal fouls to get guys kicked out so they can't play the next week. I mean, just not a well-disciplined program. So I don't know if that's still true, but I know that's the experiences they've had up here the last few years. And now they're down in Class 4, which is a weird thing to think of Jeff City in Class 4, but that's what they are when they split the schools. And all the growth, I think, is now at the new school, that part of town. So I don't know if Jeff City High School will be up in Class 5. If they didn't go up in the new configuration when they pulled teams up, then I don't know when they are going back up. So, no, I think that's an interesting district with Van Horn and Pleasant Hill, and that's Van Horn's a team to keep an eye on, and they are off to one of their best starts. Also, the 2 coaches of the week this week for the Chiefs.
Who are they?
And it's going to be Cam Smith from Washington beat Bonner. We thought that they were 0-7 all time. since 2005, I think was the first time in 8 times they'd beaten them. They're off to their best start since 2005 at 3-0, and also St. Joe Central 4-0, off to their best start since 1986.
Oh wow,
yeah. So
4-0 and like,
yeah, it's
40 years.
the St. Joe Central. The problem that St. Joe Central ran into is that they would bounce up when there was 3 suburban conferences. They would bounce up into the big, and they were like, there'd be the big 6 or so, and then they'd be the 7th one, and they were not as, so they were penciled in for 4 and 5 losses every year, playing Blue Springs and Lee Summit and Blue Springs South and teams like that. So they were always kind of the small one, and they would they've always had talent. Coach Trotter, Reggie Trotter, who's been there the last 5 years, they finally settled that program down, and he's done a fantastic job. So shout out to both those programs.
All right, sounds good. We've done all the damage we can. Enjoy your games on Friday night. Check out prepskc.com for all the scores, all the stories, all that stuff. Then turn on KSHB 41 to catch Dion and his bright, shining face, and that in that same location, that same background and everything, probably same computer, all that stuff.
Xfinity Studios, powered by Xfinity.
I'll be watching, but I will not be part of the broadcast. I'll be at well, Milv's been playing some long games lately, so we get home like almost
just in time
on the road, come right on time to turn on KSHB and watch Under the Lights.
Yes,
with Aaron Ladd and Dion Clista. Been a good run so far. I'm proud of you guys. Well done. You
well, thanks, appreciate it.
Or anything? Good job.
Yep, we no cussing so far.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Never know. No, we're 2 Mizzou guys. That helps. We're
that is true. You should be happy. Yeah. All right, guys. For Dion, I'm Nick. We'll see you next time on Snap Tackle Pod. Here we go.